Hi, this is our Picture This podcast. You can listen to it as audio or you can watch this video. Check out your favorite podcasting app and look up Tony and Chelsea Northrup's Picture This Photography podcast. Today we're talking about business tips because a lot of people ask us all the time how they can make a professional photography business or a professional video business. And I have to say I took it up a level. I made it a little more general. And the reason for that is that photography is so specific to who you are and where you are. But when Chelsea and I talked, we actually did have a lot of advice that would apply to just about any type of business. So Chelsea, tell them who makes this podcast possible.
This episode is sponsored by The Great Courses Plus. The Great Courses Plus is a subscription on-demand video learning service where you can enjoy lectures from top professors around the world. You can get a free trial of The Great Courses Plus at thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony. Thanks, The Great Courses Plus.
Thanks, guys. And we'll talk about a couple of business courses that they have because if you are trying to do business, that's a great way to learn it.
Okay. So, I thought of this podcast because I've studied business and I've seen so many business books that are like, get rich quick, do these few simple steps to be successful, win at business. I have this title, No Fail Business Tips, which is kind of like, seems clickbaity, but hear me out, Tony, because I have a different philosophy here. Okay. I think if you're really studying business properly, you're investing in yourself. And you keep learning and you keep gathering experiences and they're eventually going to lead you somewhere. So there's really no way you can fail if you go about it in that way rather than get rich quick schemes or Ponzi schemes or all those little tiny kind of fake business.
But wait, my friend has this great business plan for me where all I need to do is find 5 other people who get into that same business and I'm going to be rich.
Oh my gosh, you're making me think we should do a whole video on how to avoid multi-level marketing and pyramid schemes.
I know. I know so many people involved, they think they're entrepreneurs, really they're in a multi-level marketing scam and it's not going well for them. Or they're about to discover that it's not going to go well for them depending on what phase they're in.
I'm sure we could just riff on this for an hour, but
stay on topic.
We're going to stay on topic. So the first thing that I thought of is that you really have to know your purpose, right? What do you even want out of it? I know a lot of people start businesses. Like I said, I've taken business classes. I've met other people with the entrepreneurial spirit that are hoping to start their own business and be successful. But I think you have to know where you want to end up. And I think that target can change. So that could be if you want the freedom of your schedule, or maybe you just want to make a lot of money, or maybe you're a creative and you love to keep building things. I think you need to know your target and know what drives you so that you have a very clear vision in the beginning to know what you're working towards.
Yeah, I think it's easy to lose sight of that purpose as you develop your business. Because if you start out saying, I want to start my own business so that I can be there when my kids get home from school. And then, but pretty soon you get caught up in building a business. And then pretty soon you're working later and later hours. And maybe you're spending less and less time with your kids. Yeah. You've lost sight of your purpose. Maybe your business is successful, but your life itself isn't going well. So it's just something to keep in mind. People have different purposes.
Right. How about knowing what drives you? That was another thing that I thought of is, why do you think you should start a business? Are you really the type of person that should have your own business? What made you think that you should start your own business, Tony?
Because originally when we started out by creating stunning digital photography and I was working with publishers, I was an experienced author, and I knew none of the publishers I was working with would be able to do what I wanted. So to me, there was a niche that I could only fill if I did it my own way. I guess I had a very specific vision, and the only way I could accomplish that is by going into business on my own.
I am a problem solver and a troubleshooter, and to see anything being run in a way that I think is wrong makes me crazy, and I can't commit myself to something that I don't 100% fully believe in. And so I found myself, I was a music teacher working at a music school. They didn't take credit cards, so the teachers weren't getting paid. I sat down and had a meeting with the owners about, seems so simple, taking credit cards. They laughed me out of the room for the idea. And I said to myself, you know what? If this is their business, I want my own. And I just kept having experiences like that over and over again at my jobs where I wanted to run it. And I realized I just need to do my own thing. So know what drives you. Maybe you need to fix things all the time, or you're a free spirit and you can't work a 9 to 5. Know your driving force and know your place.
I also say a lot of people get into business too early. Like they suddenly decide that they're going to open a restaurant, but they've never worked at a restaurant. And so it's almost a cautionary thing. People should take some time and get some experience. We've managed to build a successful small business. It's accomplishing our goals, and we have a couple of employees and they seem to be doing well for themselves. But it's largely based on our own past experiences. You know, I was in publishing for close to 20 years before we started the publishing side of our business. It didn't come out of nowhere. And if I had just started writing my first book on my own without working with a publisher, I would have been totally lost. So those experiences are critical to you. And if you decide you want to be a photographer, maybe you should work underneath a couple of photographers.
You may also discover you don't want to be a photographer once you work under other photographers.
Yeah.
To extend on that story, I wanted to start my own business, my own music school. So I started working at a newly opened music school to get an idea of what the day-to-day would be like. And I discovered I didn't want to do it. There was no way I could scale it. I realized at the end of the day, I crunched some numbers and realized I'd never be able to spend the time with my daughter or make the money to be able to invest my life in other things. And I thought, no, I need something that scales bigger. I want to do something bigger.
And while you're in that experience getting job, like work for the man for a while, but pay attention to the secondary and tertiary stuff that's important, because you could be the best photographer in the world and know all your settings and have all the best gear. But if you don't know how to put together a picture package for clients that will actually sell them and make you some money, if you don't have those interpersonal skills for how to direct people and how to make them happy and feel them out, you're not going to be successful. And you can learn that from other people. Work for multiple different people.
Yeah, you can learn from other people's mistakes too. You can learn what other people are doing correctly. You can look at the other employees around you and think, I wouldn't hire a guy like that, or I do want to hire a guy like that one day, or a girl like that. So don't be afraid to work for someone else for a while to get a lot of free experience.
And if you have the choice, work for the best, even if it costs you less money.
If you can do that, yeah.
If you have the option between working for somebody who's not great but pays you more, or somebody who is great but you're working for almost free, like take that chance and learn from them, because that experience that you get long-term will pay off much better. I also say the first thing I tell people is you have to go into a field you're passionate about, because it's the passion that's going to make you work harder. A lot of people just say, oh, you need to put in long hours. You need to be ready to work really hard. And you do. But the only practical way to do that is if you are so in love with whatever the field is that you do that automatically. So a lot of people I talk to want to become a writer. And I always say, are you already a writer?
Are you writing now?
Yeah, because if you're going to be a successful author, then you have already written hundreds of pages of content, whether it's short stories or blogs or something else, because you can't stop yourself because you're passionate about it. You can't just look at authors' lives or whatever and think, that's a field I'd like to go into.
I'd like to do that.
And then start it, because you're not passionate about it, or you would have already been doing it.
Being a musician, you have that experience a lot where I'd meet people that, oh, what do you want to do? I'm going to be a rock star. I literally had musician friends say that, or acquaintances, and I'd be like, well, are you playing out? No. All right. Well, this is what we're talking about. If you're not gigging every night, if you're not touring, if you're not living out of a van, if you look at any professional, I'm sure that they were scraping by and not making anything because they loved doing what they were doing. And it just took them years, sometimes even decades, to get where they are. You have to just love what you do.
Yeah. If you're going to be a successful filmmaker, you've already stitched together lots of little stories, whether it's with your cell phone or whatever found camera you have, because you can't stop yourself.
And we've seen that with photographers that we've taught on the internet as well. They're not getting hired by magazines. They're just putting together shoots that look like magazine shoots because that's what they love. Yep. And then someone comes along and says, you could do this. Come on, I'll hire you. No one wants to hire someone that says, but I could do it if you just did most of the work for me by hiring me.
Most of us have bills to pay every month, depending on what stage you are in life. If you live with your parents or something, that's a great opportunity to start to build a business, even though you might not have the experience necessary. But as you're starting a business, you're not going to be making as much money, especially if you're changing careers from one field to another. You probably have a career where you're making a good amount of money, and therefore you probably have bills that consume all that money.
Yeah.
And that can make it difficult to transition. But because you're passionate about whatever you're going into, you're going to be willing to, get home at 5 o'clock and then do photography or whatever from 6 o'clock till 10 p.m.
This is that time when I hear people say, like, I don't have money for that. I can't start that. I can't do that. If you can't do it, don't do it. I'm not going to tell you everything's possible. I'm not going to tell you every risk to take. It's scary. There are going to be times when you don't know when your next paycheck is going to come. You're not going to know what you're going to do. This happens all of the time. Elon Musk, if you read about him, he would buy a crate of oranges and hot dogs and live off of $1 a day for food, because it wasn't just that he didn't have money, but he wanted to tell himself, if I have my computer and a roof over my head and I can eat every day, I can make a business. It's about taking sacrifices. It's about knowing that you might have 5 years of 70-hour weeks eating hot dogs and pure hell to get to a better life. If you can't take risks, if you're not willing to risk a lot, maybe being a business owner isn't for you.
But on the other hand, I have talked to people who had a successful career as a financial advisor and had stashed a couple $1 million and is like, you know what, I'm really passionate about photography. So I just quit my job and I know it's going to take me a couple of years to turn a profit on this. Yeah. But I have that money. So another option is just to be rich. That wasn't the case for us. We worked part-time. I wrote Stunning Digital Photography and we were working on photography and the YouTube channel, but I also then wrote Windows 8 Inside Out, like after that.
Well, you were having different jobs. I had 2 or 3 different jobs, and you moved in with me so that we were only paying one for one house.
Yep.
So.
But the financial part can be hard, and it's going to take time to get to the point where you're making enough money to pay your bills, whatever sort of bills that you have.
Yeah.
Chelsea, good advice.
That's the thing that scares people the most. Is I've talked to so many people about starting a business, and they always say, "What if it doesn't make money?" Oh,
that could happen.
Can't make any promises.
Yeah.
Get advice. Just ask the experts for opinions early and often. Don't wait until you're a year into your business to start talking to accountants or other people that own businesses. I've seen this before where people get so far into it making all of the wrong choices. Build a solid foundation for yourself. Know that you're registered under the right type of business, whether it be an LLC or an S Corp. Just get that kind of advice early on, right?
I'll flip it around and I'll say, take advice with a grain of salt, because I've listened to lots of people give business advice. Yeah. And it's very dependent on what made them successful, and they project a lot. So if you you watch an extrovert give a lecture on how to be a successful business person, they'll say, it's all about relationships. It's all about getting out there and talking to people and shaking hands. And then if you watch an introvert talk about it, they'll say, content is king. Work harder, focus. Okay, so I guess in this... And that's right, because they each have different personalities, but we all have different personalities. So I'm an introvert. I couldn't take the extrovert's advice and be successful. But the content is king part, that works out better for me, because I can sit there and focus and try to make some perfectionist content.
I definitely agree with that. I guess I was thinking more specifically the business management side of it, instead of trying to just kind of Frankenstein monster this thing together, maybe talk to an accountant or a professional that you're going to have to deal with inevitably in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Because as much experience as you gather, you can't be an expert about everything.
Yeah.
And on the subject of that, study money.
Please, for the love of all things holy, study money. I know people are so afraid of money. You shouldn't be. It's only as powerful as the person that has it. So understand that you deserve to have control over your money. It's not some elusive thing. It's not something you don't deserve to have. It's not something you're never going to have control over. Just study money. And if you are terrible with money, have somebody help you.
Somebody you trust, not one of those like financial advisors. Yeah. That can be a really shady field.
But I have some examples. So I knew somebody that wanted to rent a studio, and they wanted to get into it, let's say like mid-June. And so the renter wanted to prorate it at like $20 a day, which would have $20 a day at a full month, it would have ended up being the same. They got outraged. They thought the guy was ripping them off just because they didn't do the simple math and figure out that $20 a day was the same as a month's rent.
Yeah, $600 a month in rent, right? And they also didn't know what the term prorate meant.
And they didn't know what the term prorate meant. So if you don't have these simple skills with money, you're going to miss out. And if you know that you're not that great at math and money, then you know that you're probably going to shy away from it. So you got to really dig in and work extra hard at that, because what do they say? A fool and his money are always soon to part, or something like that.
So you can be a great at whatever your field is, photography or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the difference between capital and expense, if you don't know what depreciation is, like these are really important things long-term to making you successful. And those are not probably what you're passionate about.
No, nobody
is. If they are, then no, accountants can love that stuff.
That's true. They do.
If you're passionate about those things, go into accounting, because it's a field that you'll be successful at. The rest of us will have to learn, but you have to be able to talk to your accountant. I'll say one of the best books I ever read, I probably read it 15 years ago, but Accounting for Dummies.
Oh, really?
I actually really like those dummies books. And Accounting for Dummies is a big part of why we can sustain a business for working for ourselves rather than having to work for somebody else. Because I just have some fundamental experience with how taxes work. And
a master at spreadsheets. So if I start asking money questions, Tony will just plug it in to spreadsheets so we can visualize everything. And a big mistake I see people make that aren't great at money is they'll charge $200 for a portrait session and find out they spent $25 in gas and, this much here and this much there. And if they had done the math, they would have realized their profit was only $20. So it's important to go into the numbers and figure out what you're doing.
Yeah, check out Google Sheets and just figure out the basics of how to use spreadsheet. There's lots of videos that will teach you how to do it for free. And that can change, or get somebody who can do it for you, but it's pretty easy.
I searched it in a YouTube video and figured out how to use Google Sheets.
Yeah,
so.
And for the most part, as far as mathematics go, you need like third, maybe fourth grade math.
Fifth grade math, probably.
It's almost all just percentages, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Like the really basics. You don't need calculus or none of that.
Don't be afraid of money and math, guys. Just watch some YouTube videos or something. You're going to do it.
I'll also say study business. And by business, there's a lot to business besides just accounting and money, but also things like finance, marketing, how to build relationships, networking, social networking. A lot of this, you can find a lot of materials on their YouTube videos, marketing for dummies, business for dummies.
Or, you can go to a community college. They have great business classes. Or your local community might even have town classes. Sometimes it's nice to get a class in person, but you're going to learn about the stories of past businesses and the mistakes that they made. It's kind of like studying history sometimes. One
way that people can do that right now from wherever they're sitting for free is to go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony. There's also a link down in the description. There you'll get a free trial where you can see their entire library, and massive, massive library of educational and instructional videos, interesting videos, everything from photography to science to business. And they have a couple of fantastic courses on business, including a course with a massive number of videos called Critical Business Skills for Success. And
they have a video called What Trader Joe's Doesn't Do. I love videos that are learning about case studies and learning about other businesses. You can learn so much.
They have a video called When Netflix Met Blockbuster. And that's actually a topic we'll touch on a little bit later, which is that stuff changes. Mm-hmm. And you have to be prepared for that. And Blockbuster wasn't prepared. Maybe they could have watched this and tried to figure some of that stuff out. So you can see this is like each one of these videos is about half an hour long. And in this course, there are 60 of them.
Wow.
So that's a lot. Another great course that they have. These are courses, not scattered YouTube videos, but organized courses.
And this one's taught by Professor Michael Goldsby, PhD.
Yeah, the Entrepreneur's Toolkit. So things like defining a business model, picking your business structure. They'll cover things like pricing,
starting
which
a business plan,
about.
which you have to do if you go to business school. That's something I was made to do. I don't know if you have to ever make a business plan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, how about this one? Conducting risk analysis. That's something I see photographers getting wrong all the time. Every pro photographer I see who doesn't use redundant discs who doesn't have like redundant SD cards, who doesn't have
2 SD slots.
I know they've not done risk analysis. They think because it hasn't happened to them, it won't happen to them. And that's risk analysis and understanding of that will teach you that. And these are outside of whatever your passion is. But the Great Courses Plus can make that fun and easy and fast to learn. You don't have to go get your business masters. It's faster and cheaper. Go to the Great Courses
plus.com/Tony and get your free trial, and you can check out some of these courses on your own and let us know in the comments which ones you've watched and which ones are good, because there's so many. If they're good, I don't want to pick through them all.
Thanks for sponsoring us, guys. Chelsea, be polite and considerate.
Oh my gosh, this one I think is so underrated and so extremely important. Just from my point of view, we get a 2,000-word email of someone asking us to do something for them. Now, be considerate of the people that you're dealing with when you're in business. If you're asking a favor, know that everybody else has their own life and their own projects that they're trying to get done. Be concise, get to the point, be polite. Don't snub or ignore people just because you think they're unimportant. A really common thing that people know is that if you go in for an interview, sometimes the interviewer will ask like the secretary or their assistant afterwards, how did that person treat you? Because they want to know, do you respect everybody, or are you just a kiss up in your interview, you know? Have respect for people. And it sounds so simple, but I've come across so many people that are just rude or demand things instead of asking politely, or write us 3,000 words when they have one question. Just be considerate and polite. And remember that everyone has something to offer, not just a CEO, not just famous people, not the person you think heads marketing or whatever. Everyone has some insight into a company, so don't be afraid to talk to everyone that you're interested in. And I have an example of this, actually.
Yeah.
I think I've told the story before on the show, but we went to a photo expo, and we were looking for food. So we went to the back, and that's like the cheap stands. And there's this guy there, and he had this kind of cool looking backpack. And I said to Tony, I was like, this guy's like in the back. Nobody's really seeing him over these huge brands. Let's go talk to him and get some information. Maybe we can put him on the show, like help him launch this product. So I go up to him and I start looking at the bags, and he says to me, "Aren't you patient?" And I just kind of looked around, and he started talking to Tony and called me patient because he assumed that I had been dragged there and was not a photographer. And so I just grabbed Tony and I said, "No, we'll just move on. I'm not interested in this person anymore." But if he had just been polite and treated me with some respect and said, "Oh, are you a photographer? Check out my bags. Look what it does." He went through the whole spiel with you. Like, he had made an assumption. Don't assume that the person that you're talking to doesn't have advice to offer or something to offer you. Just be polite, right?
Yeah. And you know what else? If you have a business lunch or something, don't be a dick to the waitstaff. I've seen that a few times.
Oh my gosh.
You're trying to have a business meeting with somebody and they're just really rude. I'm like, I can tell who you are by how you deal with the waiter or waitress.
Would you want to deal with someone like that?
No, and I just
would
wouldn't.
not want to deal with somebody like that.
Okay, this gets very specific. I just have a slide with 5 stars on it because this is a big part of a lot of businesses, is getting that 5-star rating. A lot of businesses nowadays are crushed by Amazon reviews on their products, Yelp reviews on their services, Google reviews. Especially when you're beginning, you need to do everything you can to get every 5-star rating out there. You need to, the people who like you need to ask them for honest reviews. And if they're not happy, you need to address it.
Yeah, don't get fake reviews. People see through that.
No, absolutely don't do that. We would never do that ourselves. But also you need to do everything you can to avoid those 1-star reviews. I did the little bit of 3rd grade math here. Maybe it's 4th or 5th grade math, but you need 15 5-star reviews to overcome one 1-star review.
Yeah.
Assuming they do rounding like Amazon does with the kind of half stars. And that's a lot. That means you just need to piss off one person, and then you have to scramble to make 15 people extra happy with your service.
And just, even if that person's so rude in the 1-star review, don't be rude back, because everybody's going to see your response. Just be polite. You don't know what that person's been through. Sometimes we've had people lash out at us and be angry, and then we found out that their wife just died or something. It's not worth it. Just be polite back. Maybe they'll be reasonable and you can fix the problem for them. Maybe they won't, but there's no use getting angry.
But if you have a choice between giving them something free and maybe taking a loss now versus taking a bad review, for a lot of people, you should lean towards the side of just swallowing your ego, apologizing profusely, overreacting to the situation, being like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it arrived one day late. I'm so embarrassed. We would never let this happen. Here's a coupon, even though it's not a big deal. But that 1-star review you get will be a big deal. Learn from your failures.
You're going to make so many mistakes.
Yes.
You're going to fail so many times. We've had some failed projects for sure.
One example I thought of is we have books on Lightroom 5 and Lightroom 6. And when Adobe upgraded from Lightroom 5 to Lightroom 6, we were out of Lightroom 5 books, but people were still ordering them because people continued to use the old versions. So we had to decide how many books to order in a replacement printing. And I did a bunch of math in one of my spreadsheets, including having it trail off, but I underestimated how quickly it would trail off.
Yeah.
And so we've been left with several thousand Lightroom 5 books that we will literally have to burn. And
it's a whole different story why we have to burn them. But trust me, it sounds terrible, but it's what we have to do.
Yeah, they have to be destroyed because they're expensive to store. Anyway, that was a mistake, but I learned from it. And sure, it's a lesson that might cost me, I don't know, 10 grand or something. But I've learned that when a new version increments in software, the books will stop selling faster than I think.
Like exponentially faster.
Yeah, so that's a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
But the other math
industry.
we were going up against is the larger the print run you buy, the cheaper each individual book is. So if the print run had been too small that we ordered, then we would have lost money anyway, because then the book would have had less of a profit margin. So you just have to do the math and figure out.
It's tough. But when you inevitably do fail, you will feel better if you say, that was an expensive lesson, but it was a lesson.
This is one of those problems I have with all the Kickstarter things when people get like $1 million in funding right away. We always say, I'm like, oh, well, that's poor soul, because any mistake that they make is going to be like not $1,000 mistake or a $500 mistake, but like $100,000 mistake.
Yep, and it will be somebody else's money.
And it's going to be somebody else's money. It's going to be really hard.
I'll also say something I repeatedly see from entrepreneurs is that they explain that it's hard to hire somebody. And then when you dig into it, they say that their employees don't work as hard as them. But that's going to be the case. That's always going to be the case, because it's your child. It's your passion. It's your baby. You're the one who stands to gain the most from it. So you as the entrepreneur are going to be 2 or 3 times more passionate as whoever's working for you. That's just always the case. And if you do find somebody who is as passionate and as ambitious as you, I'll bet you anything that they're going to want to go on and do their own thing in a couple of years. They might be, what we talked about in one of the first slides, they might be learning from you just so they can build their own business, if they have that sort of fire in them anyway.
But treat them well. I've seen that mistake too, where people don't know what they have when they have it. They find a good employee and they think, oh, that's what a employee is supposed to be, and then they never give them a raise or anything like that. So if you find someone that actually cares and is willing to work alongside you, treat them well. It's an investment. Don't cheap out on them. Just keep teaching them with you and bring them up alongside you.
Yeah, you're not just taking care of your own life, but the lives of your employees to a large extent.
Yeah.
It's a lot of responsibility. Some people, I bring up willingness to invest because some people are very afraid to invest. Often businesses require thousands and thousands of dollars in investments. And sometimes when any entrepreneur looks back at their biggest mistakes, if they're good at math, they can see that a failure to invest at some point was one of their biggest mistakes. And if you were trying to be a YouTuber, you might, for example, be delaying buying a wireless lav system, like a wireless mic system. Remember how we used to run a cable from the camera up to a lav mic so we could record audio? And that could be a mistake because all it takes is somebody to trip over that cable and then drag your camera down and have it smashed to pieces. And suddenly it would have been much cheaper for you just to buy that lav mic. There are lots of cases where...
How about some people are the opposite. They invest in all of the wrong stuff. So they're on YouTube now, so they buy like a $300 hat. That's a weird example for me to think of. But make sure that you're investing in a way that's actually going to make you money long term.
Yeah, I do see people who are just a little shopping crazy and they go buy all the most expensive stuff before they're really ready to understand. Like, wait until you can define and understand a need for something before you buy it.
Because you see that with photographers.
Don't delay it
they're like, oh, Sony they just said that the A9 is the greatest. I need that now. Like, how do you do the research? Do you know? Do you know that that's actually what you need? How will it actually benefit you? Don't just spend money to feel like you're being active in your business. Make sure it makes sense. Well, we have to buy print runs. That's the most bummer purchase I can tell you about, because we don't see them, right?
Yeah.
They cost us a huge amount of money up front, and then they just get shipped somewhere. So we're like, goodbye, money.
Yeah.
I hope to see you again sometime.
If you publish books like we do, you buy books typically in like 10 to 15,000 copy allotment, so you get several pallets of books, and you don't see that. You pay $50K up front, and you don't see any of that money for like 6 months, sometimes more than a year.
Yeah,
that's painful, but that's
or
what
never.
You have to do.
If your books don't sell, people say those Northrups, they look like they eat people. I'm not buying their books.
Some people have heard this story before, but I was a techie before this. I was a techie during the tech boom in the 90s. And I was also a techie in 2001 when the stock market crashed and the tech industry as a whole crashed.
But were you ever a Trekkie?
We're called Trekkers. Oh, what a slap in the face.
Sorry.
And so I like to tell people to be ready for a plan B. I feel like photography is going through a steep transition now. I feel like some people who might be wedding and portrait photographers, or more likely portrait photographers, might not be able to be a portrait photographer in 5 or 10 years because the industry is changing, and it's changing quickly. And I think it's always important to have some sort of plan B once you get your business up and running. Be ready to transition. So if you're a stills photographer, maybe you start dabbling in video a little bit.
But this is what I was talking about in the beginning. If you're really building a business, your biggest investment is yourself, and you're always learning something new. So that's kind of a part of it. If you're doing portraits now, you can always learn something about video. I mean, you'll have some of the same tools. There's some overlap. So just keep expanding. Just don't limit yourself.
This goes back to that Great Courses Plus risk assessment video, which is something people need to watch because it's a risk that your industry will transition before you're ready.
When you were writing books,
Yeah, I was writing computer books and that industry fell apart.
It completely dried up. We were so lucky. I mean, we were using those books to fund this business now. And then by the time we were just ready to sell our book on our own, you could not get a job. I don't know that we would have been able to pay the bills had we not been transitioning.
Yeah, my peers who were writing books and stuff, they ended up running backups and stuff, which would be a nightmare for me. They just went back to sort of the daily grind because that industry went away and they just weren't ready to transition. And it's happened over and over again. Like automobiles killed off saddle makers. Some people still make saddles.
I was going to do that next.
Train systems mostly died off once trucking took off. And, if you're a taxi driver now or an Uber driver, like
automated.
There's going to be self-driving cars in the near future. Just start doing something else. Get ready for something else. Maybe it won't happen, but it's better to be prepared than to not be able to pay your bills because the world moved without you.
Some people get really stuck. They're like, no future, no robots. I'm not changing. The world is wrong, not me. Mm-hmm. Feel real bad for those people.
Yeah, the world does not care whether you think it should change or not. It's going to change without you.
Yeah. Write that one down, kids.
And kind of a call to action, start this now. There are lots of things you can do. Part of it is education. You can go to our sponsor, thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony, and start watching some business videos. But you can also take action. You can set up a website for yourself. You can figure out what it's going to take to actually start your business and think about what your passion is.
Don't tell me you can't do it now. I know I'm going to get someone in the comments. Well, I have kids or I have this. You don't have to do it all at once. Take a class or watch a video. Get prepared. There's so much work you can be doing to prepare for what you want to do next. Start it now, not tomorrow, not later, not this summer, right? Yep. Everyone's always got an excuse to put it off. Don't be afraid to fail. You're going to. It's fine. Just do it now.
Yeah, take some action now. If you're trying to be a portrait photographer, put something on your Facebook and just ask if anybody wants some free pictures so you can help start to build up your portfolio. Or reach out to other photographers and see if you can intern for them and get some experience.
Be a second shooter or something.
Yep. whatever it takes, but do that stuff now, but also be patient. Have yourself a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
You don't have to stick to that plan.
No, you can change it.
Have your plan
Have it.
and know that it might take you 5 years until you can be comfortable at what you're doing.
So this is something I see all the time where people want it now, so they never do it at all. And one of the saddest things to me is that someone can want something so badly and be so afraid of failure or be so afraid that they're not ready that in 15 years they look back and they never made progress. Don't be that person. Just start making progress now. Even if you never become the next Elon Musk, you'll be somewhere further along in your dream and your journey, building yourself, improving yourself in a way that you want. Just do it.
You know what I hear from people who try to start a YouTube channel? They put up a couple of videos and they're like, if they pay me 22 cents for my videos, that doesn't make sense. I can't live off that. It's like, no, not
Welcome
now,
to it, girlfriend.
But maybe if you get yourself 100,000 subscribers or 500,000 subscribers, maybe then you can start to pay the bills. Actually, no, it probably is more like 2 billion.
2 billion subscribers.
2 billion subscribers.
Now you can afford shoes.
But just as an example. Anyway, I also want to throw it out to you, the viewer, to add a comment, contribute your own thoughts, your own little bit of advice, because I know we have a lot of successful business people out there, successful entrepreneurs. It doesn't have to be in the fields of photography, because a lot of these lessons apply generally. Most of this stuff applies generally, and we don't claim to be the world's business experts, but we each have had some experiences. Nobody knows, but I was a director of marketing and strategy at a Fortune 100 company for a while. I also saw that company through bankruptcy and massive layoffs. Like, I have had some experience with this stuff and started a couple of businesses on my own. Obviously, if you start more than one, maybe the first one didn't succeed, but that's true for a lot of people.
I've had some unsuccessful businesses and I learned a lot from them at a pretty low risk.
And thanks for joining us, and thanks to our sponsor, thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony will get you a free trial where you can go check out a couple of their business courses or photography courses or video courses or science courses, just about whatever your passion is. They have awesome, structured, organized content, which is far better than trying to wander your way through a bunch of mediocre YouTube videos. They have actual
Unless it's our
experts.
mediocre YouTube video.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to the Great Courses Plus. Check it out. Subscribe and check out our podcast, of course. Picture this podcast in your favorite podcasting app. I suggest next time listening to it while you drive or work out or cook dinner,
preferably
or
my
clean
house.
Or edit your photos.
Justin, you should listen to it while you clean our house.
Good suggestion. Thanks.
Justin's
bye.
like, get out of here. Shut up, Chelsea.